Welcome to the lecture on population dynamics. In the definition of a population, upon first reading, you might see that the definition isn't quite clear, that we have two different ways to define a population. But if we look at this clearly, we can see that there are some similarities. So in these two differences, the first being a number of organisms of the same species in an area at the same time, and a group of organisms of the same species competing for the same resources, we can see that it's always some sort of number or group, always the same species, doing some sort of thing, either in an area at a given time or competing for the same resources. As they compete for the same resources, it might be over various areas, not necessarily one particular area, but they're doing this one thing, competing for the same resources. Whereas in the first, they're just in an area at the same time. So out of those two possibilities, tell me, which of the following is the most accurate example of a population of the following choices? The first, a herd of deer. Second, school of fish in the Red Sea. 3, 250 elephants in Africa in 2007, or a flock of Canadian geese. During these flipped classroom lectures, it's best if you pause right after we offer the options. Take a guess, try and work it out, and then restart. Welcome back! If you followed the directions, that was a much longer break. If you didn't follow the directions there, then you're a little bit blown away. So 3 is the best option. Here we have a number of the same species, given area, given time. Although it may seem like overkill, like way too much information, defining the population helps others understand what's going on. Some other key definitions for population dynamics are going to be a community, all the populations in a given area. So this bridges species. You don't just have to have one species, you can have a number of species. You can have a number of producers, a number of predators, a number of prey. Ecosystem, all the biotic and abiotic factors in a given area. And lastly, biosphere, all parts of Earth that can support life. So populations are quite dynamic. Populations with unlimited resources will grow exponentially. This is a given. They will grow until they are limited by factors in the environment, whether those factors are abiotic or biotic. And then when a population becomes too big, it reaches what we call the carrying capacity. Carrying capacity is all about environmental factors that can limit the population. In a population density, we find this by doing a little math. So a population is defined mathematically by the number of organisms divided by the area that you occupy. So here on CA, we have a bit of a rabbit problem. Here on CA campus, we've got a ton of rabbits all around the place. You've probably noticed 5 or 6. Well, if you computed the area in which you were with those 5 or 6, you could extrapolate to the 94 acres that we have here on the CA campus. And so if we estimated that there are 2,000 rabbits on 94 acres, you can mathematically, using this equation above, determine how many there are per acre. We do this by a little bit of division, and we see that there are 21.28 rabbits per acre. Now obviously somebody isn't going around and lopping off 28% of a rabbit and leaving it in each acre. No, heavens no. Instead, this is just a mathematical divisional, maybe what you call error, because although we don't have 0.28 rabbits per acre lying around, the full rabbit is running along somewhere around. And so maybe on 1 acre, you might even find something like 25 rabbits. But for sure, if you were to look at another acre, you might find fewer rabbits, somewhere around 17 rabbits. It's only over the 94 acres that we come to this average. In the limiting factors that we mentioned before, the limiting factors that can cause populations to start to level off and stop increasing, we find two different terms. The first being density-dependent limiting factors. These factors are all about the population density having some sort of effect on the rest of the population. So if the population density is too large, the following factors can limit the size. Lack of food, because the population is far too dense, there's not enough food to go around. Because the population is far too dense, there almost will be a lack of space. And because the population is dense, things like disease will spread more rapidly through communication and constant contact between one organism and another of this same population. Then we also have density independent limiting factors. Factors that occur regardless whether the population density is large or the population density is small. From these, we have hurricanes, so things like natural disasters, floods, droughts, earthquakes. All of these occur independent. No matter how big or small the population is, they don't determine hurricanes, floods, droughts, or earthquakes, because truly they are just insignificant. Also, extreme weather changes and forest fires. So populations then, how do they change? Although they can change with density-dependent and independent factors, there are other ways in which they change. The first being immigration. Immigration, organisms are coming into a population. Emigration, organisms are exiting a population. A simple way to remember this is just by taking a look at what the first letter is of these. In immigration, they're coming in. In emigration, they're exiting. Natality, this is the birth rate. And mortality, death rate. And when we take a look into these, this is how we measure the numbers of how a population changes. So here's a little bit of math for you. Please pause, take a read, and answer the question. And we're back! If you would have followed the directions, that probably wouldn't have been so surprising. The correct answer is 270 iguanas. Immigration, we have 15 a year coming in, and so over the population of 10 years, that is 150. Immigration, 5 per year going out, so that's 50 going out. Natality, that's 200 over the 10 years being born. And then immortality over 10 years, that's 150 going out. You do the math, the addition, the subtraction, you come up with 270 iguanas. So what's the population density of oak trees if there are 150 oak trees in a 10-acre area? And there you go, 15 oak trees per acre. Because here we have 10 acres, and out of a population density, we divide the number of species by the area. As all of these options are giving you per acre, and that's what we're focusing on, how many per acre, we come to 15 oak trees per acre. 15 oak trees is just an identifier. It cannot give us a density, because density always requires a number versus an area, a given size, location. And just 15 oak trees, that doesn't tell me what the size is. What is that? Per square mile? Per foot? We need that acreage. And so here's one other math problem. In a population of snapping turtles, with the population dynamics of immigration coming which way? And emigration going which way? Mortality, death, natality, birth. What's the overall rate of change in the turtles? Please pause and figure this out. If you said 40 turtles a year, you are correct. Habitat. Some of the final things that are really important to population density. Although ecosystem and habitat are often used interchangeably by people who aren't quite sure or aren't quite hip to ecology. They are not the same thing whatsoever. An ecosystem is a collection of organisms that interact with their environment and each other, of course, to sustain life. Whereas habitat is where a specific organism lives, such as fish might be part of an ecosystem up in the mountains. However, fish do not live in the grass. Fish only live in the water. That's their habitat. And then lastly, niche. This is the role an organism fills in an ecosystem. So to figure out what a niche truly is, we have to ask ourselves, what does this do for everybody else? Is it a predator, prey, producer? Only one organism can be in a niche at one time. If there are 12 prey species maybe available in this niche, there are therefore 12 prey niches. So when we say only one organism can be in a niche at one given time, it doesn't mean there can only be one cat, one dog, one goose, one chicken, one squirrel per house. It means instead that the number of prey species, or the number of species of anything in any given situation that we find, is the number of niches available. Only one predator, we say, will be able to exist at the top of the food chain. Another may try to be there, but only one of them will fit in that niche. Therefore, the other is said to be outcompeted. That was Population Dynamics. Hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask us. Of course, always take notes during these things. And of course, seeing as this is a video, feel free to stop us at any time, replay, just to make sure that you understand. If you still don't understand, you can send us an email or see us next class time. Take care.